We are into the late great Roger Moore era of the Bond films now. Sean Connery made Bond a film superstar, no doubt about it. It was the golden age of the Bond films. Thunderball made the most money ever of any Bond films with the money adjusted for today's sales. Roger Moore is my personal favourite James Bond. And I feel like the Roger Moore era proved that the James Bond film franchise could survive without Connery. And there's some bad films in the Roger Moore era, granted, but I always loved watching him as James Bond, and he's the only Bond to date I've met in person, got his signature, all that jazz. And what a gentleman he was. Anyway, let's crack on with this list. The 007 Roger Moore Bond films, worst to best. In my seventh place is his final outing as James Bond in A View to a Kill, directed by John Glenn. It's a passable Bond movie, but it definitely is Moore's worst entry. It does have the excellent Christopher Walken in that film, but apart from him and Moore, there's really not much great stuff to report in that film. My sixth place entry is The Man with the Golden Gun from 1974, directed by Guy Hamilton, whom also directed Goldfinger 10 years previously. The Man with the Golden Gun, anytime I'm doing a Bond marathon, I'm always like, oh, not the man with the golden gun again. And in this film, I feel like they tried to make Roger Moore too much like Sean Connery. Whereas in Live and Let Die, I went to look for my Live and Let Die VHS thumbnail. Couldn't find it, so I thought I'd edit out the shit. Anyways, I feel like that's got the best cover of the Roger Moore Bond films. Will it be my number one? Time will tell. Yeah, in The Man with the Golden Gun, they tried to make him too much like Sean Connery. It doesn't work with Roger Moore. Roger Moore offers something completely different to the role than Sean Connery. That's why he works. He works in the role, and the Bond franchise continued. My fifth place Roger Moore Bond film, I'm going to go with a controversial choice, which is Moonraker. Moonraker it's got that infamous time when Bond goes into space, that pigeon double take. I love that. Love little things like that. And Moonraker, it's completely bonkers film, but it's one of those Bond films I can, if I don't have to be in the mood for Moonraker. I can just put it on and I can relax and chill with Moonraker and enjoy all the silliness, because sometimes you got to be in the right frame, right mood for a Pacific Bond film, like From Russia with Love, which I think's the greatest Bond film of all time. But you've got to be in the mood for that film. I feel with Moonraker, you can just relax and laugh at how silly it and over the top it is. My fourth place is Live and Let Die. Roger Moore's original appearance as Bond. Unlike the Man with the Golden Gun, he was just himself and gave his own take on the character in Live and Let Die. Now, when you're watching a Bond marathon for the first time, and you've never seen the Bond films before, and you go from Connery to Lazenby to Moore takes a bit of getting used to. I didn't originally like Roger Moore to begin with, but then he ended up becoming my favourite. And again, when you do reruns of the Bond films, you start with Connery, And when you're going through Connery, you're thinking, how can I think anybody's better than this guy as Bond? But then you get to Moore, and then you get into the later Moore era, thinking, oh god, this guy is fantastic in the role. Live and Let Die is, I gave it a 6 out of 10 in my score. It's got a lot of great villains in this, but the story isn't up to much. However, it has some great characters, great villains, like I say, and a tremendous speedboat chase that goes on for quite a bit and is a very memorable part of the Bond franchise. My third place is going to be For Your Eyes Only, 1981, the first 80s Bond film, directed by John Glenn, who would direct all the 1980s Bond films, including the Dalton Double. I'll get on to him soon. Previously, I had done Connery's 007 Bond rankings. I even talked about George Lazenby's only Bond film, and here we are with the Moore era. Next will be my take on the Dalton Double on PMDB videos. For Your Eyes Only, perhaps the most action-packed Bond film of the Moore era. There's so much going on. There's a nice little nod to On Her Majesty's Secret Service actually at the very start of the movie when Bond pays tribute to his wife, Tracy Bond, who got killed at the end of On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Now, throughout the Connery era, Lazenby, Moore, Dalton, and even Brosnan in Die Another Day, we're supposed to believe that they're it's the same person. I'm sorry, BS. Sean Connery is completely different from Roger Moore. Are they trying to tell me that Sean Connery later on in life became an Englishman and shaved his chest? Bullshit. This, to me, there's the Sean Connery Bond. There's the Roger Moore. You get the picture. They're all different James Bonds in sometimes completely different universe or similar universes. Is the way I see it. So number 2 pick, I'm going to go with one I believe is a very underrated James Bond film. Some say it's so bad it's good. Octopussy, which was released in 1983. It was the Battle of the Bonds. It was Octopussy versus Never Say Never Again. Octopussy got more money at the box office, so Sean Connery was defeated by Roger Moore that specific year. It's always a toss-up between Connery and Moore, who's my specific favourite Bond. But I do believe Octopussy is a hell of a lot better than Never Say Never Again, and in my opinion, one of the most underrated Bond films ever made. Octopussy is my number 2 spot in the Roger Moore era. Now, number 1, The Spy Who Loved Me. Christopher Nolan rates this film, the director of the Dark Knight trilogy. He's one of the films he's inspired by. If I were to show a stranger who has never seen a Bond film before, try and get them into Bond, The Spy Who Loved Me be one of those Bond movies. It also debuts the greatest villain in Bond franchise history, by far, Jaws, played by Richard Kiel. He is fantastic in his role as Jaws. He gets a bit silly in Moonraker, I will say, but in The Spy Who Loved Me, he is written right in this film, and I love the train scene when good old Roger Moore and Jaws battle it out. And I remember watching the film for the first time thinking, I hope he doesn't get killed off in this film. I want to see some more Jaws in later Bond films. And he survives at the end of this film. And I was smiling at that because originally they were going to kill him off, but test audiences liked the Jaws character so much they had to rewrite the ending. But The Spy Who Loved Me, now I've been re-ranking these Bond films. I've done the Connery ones and put On Her Majesty's Secret Service in there as well. So The Spy Who Loved Me the best Roger Moore Bond film, but it's currently my number 2 in my re-ranked list. It might feature my favorite Bond, but I have to say, From Russia with Love, once again, so far in this re-ranked journey, is my number 1 Bond film. But number 2, the best Roger Moore one, by quite a mile, is The Spy Who Loved Me.